Like hundreds of thousands of people around the world, I jumped on the Warhammer 40,000 train when the 9th edition box set Indomitus came out. And just like all newbies that joined the community, my first army would end up being Space Marines. However, I chose a unique color scheme because the lore and paint jobs of the existing chapters just didn't appeal to me. That all changed when I watched the fan film Hell's Reach by Richard Boylan, immediately buying their army box and most of their unique miniatures. So when Games Workshop revealed the Bayard's Revenge commemorative figure, I just knew that I had to get it and give it the best possible paint job I can. Let's go ahead and unbox this first. And it's just what you would expect. One base, the instruction pamphlet, and a single sprue with every piece you will need. Now, usually I don't remove mold lines on my miniatures, as they really won't be seen on the tabletop. But considering the fact that this is mostly meant for display, I will go the extra mile and smooth those out. In my opinion, painting in sub-assemblies is the most optimal way to paint, as it allows you to get into the nook and crannies that you usually wouldn't be able to reach. I, personally, recommend applying this to the champion himself, but you can skip this step for the orc, as he has such a wide pose. With primer applied, it is time to pick which of the 3 main pieces to paint first. And I think I'll go with the orc, as I've never painted one before. Now, my thought process when I paint is that the sunken parts should go first, as it will result in fewer mistakes that will need to be corrected later. That means that I'll paint the skin first. So, what is required to paint good orc skin? Now, according to some online tutorials, contrast Plague Bearer flesh, wash down with Bieltan green, and then applying some Elysian and Bile green for highlights. There is only one issue. I have none of those paints. What I do have is contrast Warpstone Glow. And that's it. Lack of green paint aside, the pants and belts are painted with Vallejo Gray Black and Leather Brown respectively. Nothing special here, just being careful to not paint the wrong thing, but covering everything that I need to, as with white primer, it's very noticeable if you don't cover it. Even though I'm leaving the champion for last, I still decided to get the sword done now, since I already have the paint in my palette and would rather use it before it dries. With that done, it's time to get the knob associated with a clan. And while the box art displays him as part of the Goths, I feel like the already vibrant skin color would benefit from an equally bright pigment. Blue would be nice, but as you'll see later, it would feel a bit too repetitive. So yellow it is. And what better yellow to use than the one that does most of the job for you with contrast, and in yellow. Since I've had it for a long time now, I'll first test the thinning process I put it through on this Templar icon, just to see that it runs well, and once I get it to an adequate viscosity, it goes on the orc. After the main colors, it's time to fill in the details. These are the paints used, and the details include eyes, mouth, buckles on the straps, but also the power claw and shoes. Then it's time for washes. I like the vibrancy on the green skin and the yellow armor bits, so those are staying as is. Once those dry, I'll apply the following paints as highlights. Neutral gray on the pants, tan earth on brown leather, chainmail silver on the claw, and dark red again on the eyes, just so that they pop. With the knob done, we move on to the base, and I have a very special thing in mind. A few months ago, I saw this Helbrecht mini by Nikki Sullivan on Twitter, and even though it says that he is on ice, I can't help but see water instead. So, inspired by movies and TV shows with scenes near the ocean, I've made the choice to add water effects to the base. But first, we must paint up the base. We'll use Night Lord's blue to paint the parts that will have water applied to it. And burnt umber on the rocks with a light dry brush of tan earth to bring out some of the details where the paint may have pooled. Once that dries, we apply the effects. The only problem is that it will take quite literally days to dry. So while that is going on, we can move on to painting the Space Marine. Alright, look. He is going to be painted with Vallejo Dark Gray, and that is pretty much 70% of the miniature done. White pieces are painted with off-white, brown straps and belt will be the same as the knob, leather brown, and reds are also painted with dark red. With the backpack having the main vents colored black, as with the box, as well, would be a bit monotonous. So instead I'll paint them with a metallic color. That being Granite Steel for its bluish hue, which will match perfectly with the edge highlights I'm planning for all that black armor. The grenade was colored in with Castellan Green, and all copper parts with Rune Lord Brass. And once that is all ready, a little cheeky hazard stripe cable on the helmet, in order to break up all that black and white. When it comes to washing the Mini, Agrak's Earth Shade took over, shading in the sword, eyes, belts, straps, and even the lamp on the hip, though just the top and bottom parts of it in order to give the impression that it emits light, even if just a little. Now, one thing I find important when applying shaders is to actually thin the paint down a bit more than what it already is, because too much of it can darken the piece to an unnecessary level, which then causes conflict with the other tones on the miniature. Once that is all done, we're moving on to edge highlighting, and here is where I'm going to switch it up a bit. For context, if you follow me on Instagram, you can see that all of my black Templars are highlighted with a gray paint, Vallejo Neutral Gray for clarification, the same as the one I used on the pants on the Ork. So in order to break up the monotone color a bit, I'll instead be using blue gray. This will also help it stand out from the rest of the army, even though the pose and basing already does that. Other highlights include a bit of tan earth just on the holster of his pistol, and dark red again on the seals of his back, hilt of his sword, and raised detail of the eyes. Now, this step is specific to the eyes, but I also applied Vallejo Bright Orange afterwards, though only halfway down in order to bring the eye lenses to life. Oh, and oily steel to the chain links that go from his sword to the wrist. No shade or highlights was applied to the backpack vents in order to allow them to shine. And even then, the shades I have, that being Agrax Earth Shade and Null Oil, would dull it down, and it really wouldn't fit anyways. With all said and done, the only thing left to do is varnish everything, apply glue, allow the water effects to dry. Oh, and, well, apply a healthy coat of dry brushed off-white to the edges of the water effects. And with that, we have our finished display piece. I have to say, there are good and bad things in both planning and execution now that I see the miniature finalized. The water didn't quite come out how I wanted, and the details on the Nob's armor are, not gonna lie, lacking. But even with those skills of mine failing, I still love the contrast between the vibrant Orc and the muted Templar, as if one is having fun while the other is simply fulfilling his dour service. But for now, that is all I have. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, and if you have any recommendations on how to improve next time, leave a comment down below. In any way, shape, or form, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.